It's been a quiet news week in my little corner of the internet, and so rather than let the channel languish and die, I thought I'd do something that may seem left field to the audience because obviously you guys don't know who I am and you just know what I present, but it actually isn't, because some of you may have noticed over the last couple of years, in fact, based on your comments, you have noticed that I have a very heavily vintage inspired wardrobe. In fact, the pieces themselves, almost 90% of them, are actual vintage. And so while I was looking at photos of what celebrities wore on the Golden Globes red carpet this year, I noticed a very heavily vintage inspired theme. So I thought it would be fun to analyze their fashion choices by linking them to the vintage inspirations that I believe they have been modeled after. So if this is not your cup of tea, I know this is really not normal content for my channel. In fact, this is the first time I'm doing this. I completely understand if you don't want to watch, and I will see you in the next video. The rest of you, whether you're new or you've been around for a while, let's step into a red carpet lined time machine. All right, starting off with Miley Cyrus. So she is wearing a shimmering sequined black gown designed by Saint Laurent creative director Anthony Vaccarello. And as you can see, this dress is incredibly dramatic. It's got a dramatic neckline with scalloped fabric and ruffles. And instantly, as soon as I saw it, I thought 80s. You might be inclined to agree with me when you look at these photos of Joan Collins from the 80s in Dynasty with the puff sleeves and the bold silhouette. There's even this photo specifically of Joan Collins wearing a sequined pink dress with a very similar structure around the shoulders. Now, Miley's kept it nice and modern with her sleek hair, but overall, I do think this look screams 80s. Next, we have Ariana Grande in a black number by Vivienne Westwood. Now, this look has been quite controversial. It's been receiving mixed reviews. Some people love it, some people hate it. I personally think it's classic Vivienne Westwood. Perhaps Ariana is a bit too small, too short for such an overwhelming silhouette, but I am not here to critique. We are here to look at any vintage inspirations behind these designs. And as soon as I saw Ariana's dress, I instantly thought of Keira Knightley in Anna Karenina. Now, I understand this movie is from 2012 and it is not vintage per se. I believe the movie's costume designer did modernize the look and took great artistic liberty, but I instantly thought of Keira in that now iconic black dress, which she wears in the ballroom scene where she and Count Vronsky dance together for the first time. It's got a very similar silhouette, obviously the color, the drama, the poofy skirt, but most importantly, the asymmetrical off-the-shoulder design. Now with Keira, it's not necessarily as asymmetric as Ariana's dress, but when she wears it off the shoulder, because she actually wears it on and off the shoulder at certain points in the scene, I think the connection, or the resemblance rather, is uncanny. There's also another dress that Keira's character wears in that movie, very similar in silhouette, but crimson in color. And it also has a very similar structure, especially around the shoulders. Moving on to Selena Gomez in Chanel. I think anyone who sees this dress or this look for the first time instantly thinks old Hollywood, the hair, the makeup, the dress itself, of course, and it apparently took 323 hours of work, from construction to intricate embroidery. As for the inspiration, I personally initially thought of this iconic photo of Marilyn Monroe with her fur stole. Now, yes, this is fur, whereas Selena's wearing feathers, but I do believe that that's what this look evokes. The concept of having a fur stole around you, which was all the rage back in the 1950s and even before and after, basically that whole old Hollywood era. There was, however, another inspiration, if we're going to look at feathers in particular, which is this look by Sophia Loren from 1963, where she is literally wearing feathers, as you can see. But I still think the whole stole look was more what Selena and her team were going for, especially considering the placement and the shape of the embroidery around her shoulders. And I must say, the hair and the makeup too are very much on point and really complete the look. Next, we have Amanda Seyfried, and I actually had to Google how to say her last name because I've realized I haven't actually had to say it ever before. So according to her,
it's Seyfried.
Now, she showed up in custom Versace. Apparently she's quite partial to Versace. And as soon as I saw this photo, and I have to say with this one, I'm not the only one. I have seen a few other people make this reference. I thought of Grace Kelly in her iconic white dress from To Catch a Thief. What I really appreciate about what Versace have done with this dress is they've somehow managed to modernize it, but it still instantly reminds people of that classic dress from the 1950s. And I mentioned that Selena's dress took, 320 plus hours to make. This one apparently took over 400 hours to construct. Next, we move on to Pamela Anderson in Ferragamo. Now, apparently this is also a controversial look, and I can see why. On first glance, it does look a bit frumpy. I don't necessarily like how low the skirt is sitting. Pamela is in great shape for her age, but the way the skirt sits makes it look like, or rather may emphasize, a little pooch that she has going on there, which is absolutely fine and normal. I just think when it comes to these events, perhaps a little bit more care should be taken to iron out, quite literally in this case, a few creases. However, I instantly thought of Carolyn Bessett-Kennedy and her iconic black skirt, white button-up that she wore in the late 90s. Now, as someone who was born around that time, I actually struggle to consider that era vintage, but we have a piece here that's even newer than the 90s, and it's still considered vintage, so guess I'm officially vintage. But that is the look that I thought of, and I would not be surprised in the slightest if that is the look that inspired this outfit. Moving on to Elle Fanning in a floral beaded Gucci dress, which featured a very deep V neckline, both in the front and the back, and delicate applique, a fitted bodice, and a floor-length train skirt with a subtle train. This may not be a popular comparison or inspiration. You might all really disagree with me in the comments, but when I saw this dress, I instantly thought of Happy Birthday to you. Marilyn Monroe's Happy Birthday naked dress, even though obviously this dress is not naked in the slightest, Elle's dress that is. The silhouette and the way it's so perfectly fitted to her, it almost looks like a second skin. In addition to the, in my opinion, very obvious vintage silhouette, very feminine, very timeless in fact look of this dress, I just couldn't help but draw parallels. Now, Marilyn's dress was more risque, of course. It was a lot more low cut in the back. Her entire back was practically exposed, unlike Elle's dress. But just the overall vibe and silhouette just made me think of Marilyn, except Elle did it in a more classy and tasteful manner. Then we have quite the controversial candidate. This one has received a lot of flack from the public, Jennifer Lopez, who showed up in a 2003 archival look from Jean-Louis Cherrer Haute Couture. And it's made of a delicate nude-hued mesh with a mermaid-style hem made with hundreds of yards of tulle and showing, as I suppose per usual, a lot of skin. The reason this dress made the cut is because it is literally vintage, or at least it qualifies as vintage according to the definition, because I just cannot fathom how 2003 is vintage. It makes no sense to me. Having said that, I am not too sure I'm a fan of the sheer quality of it. When I first saw her in it, I didn't understand the controversy. I know she's of a certain age. I think she's 56, turning 57 this year or something. And so for her to look as phenomenal as she does, and it's clearly a product of hard work, is commendable, to say the least. Now, when it comes to showing skin, personally, I'm not a fan of it no matter how young you are. And I say this as a young woman. I don't think I should be showing certain parts of my body just because I'm young, or even girls younger than I am. I just don't like it, full stop. But I understand people's criticism, bringing her age into it. And that seems to be the problem here again, because as I was saying, upon first glance, I didn't even notice it was sheer. And then when I saw her belly button and realized, oh, this is literally showcasing her skin, her body underneath, I sort of understood and I agreed. It's just something people are going to notice and something people are going to talk about. In my books, I didn't even like Jennifer Lawrence's look, and Jennifer Lawrence is a young woman. And I still don't think that she did herself any favors. It didn't make the cut because it wasn't really vintage inspired, at least not to me. But this one, I can appreciate the craftsmanship and the fact that it is vintage and it has been conserved for 23 years now, going back to 2003. It was 23 years ago. It seems to be in impeccable condition, and it seems to have survived the night, which is more than we can say about Marilyn's happy birthday dress, thanks to one Kim Kardashian. But I think if they had just put in an additional layer underneath so that it looks like skin, but it's actually a a skin-colored lining, then people may have been more receptive to this look. Because if it had just draped her silhouette without revealing skin, she looks great. And I think no matter how old you are, if you've got it, flaunt it. Just not too much. Speaking of showing too much skin, next we have Wednesday Addams herself, Jenna Ortega, dressed in a black gothic number by designer Dilara Findicolo. This is another look that has been quite controversial. A lot of people hate it and a lot of people love it from what I've seen. Personally, it's not my cup of tea. Again, I keep forgetting I'm not really here to critique, but rather to talk about the vintage inspirations. And when I saw this dress, I immediately thought of Victorian morning dresses. If you have a look at these original fashion plates from the era, I try to use fashion plates because in the era of AI, I just have no idea sometimes anymore whether an image is real or AI generated. But fashion plates seem to be untouched and safe. And you can see a lot of resemblances. Obviously, they're much more covered up. But the high neckline and the entire structure of the bodice area just screams Victorian morning dress, which people like to call gothic, I suppose. And with good reason, considering we're talking about Jenna Ortega, who's basically the gothic princess of our era. On to a personal favorite of mine, not just the actress herself, but the dress that she is wearing is just chef's kiss. The beautiful Rose Byrne. She just looks incredibly amazing in this green dress by Chanel. And as you can see from this headline that I am going to put up on screen, I am not the only one who instantly saw the Atonement connection. Atonement is a movie that I saw in 2010, when I was still too young to be seeing it. I had no business watching it. It kind of messed me up, I'm not gonna lie. But that dress on Keira Knightley is something that cannot be replicated, or at least I thought up until I saw Rose Byrne in this number. So this is a custom emerald green draped silk gown, as I said, from Chanel. And even Vogue acknowledges it's got more than a hint of Atonement, embroidered with glass pearls and crystals. It has more than 4,660 embroidered elements, which took 210 hours, almost 9 days, to create. It's also got a beautiful train and intricate pleating details up the front. It is just incredible. I think I would class this as my personal favorite from this year. Next, we have Parker Posey in a custom silk taffeta gown by Rodarte. This one also has been quite controversial. People loved it and people hated it. I wouldn't choose to wear this myself to an event like the Golden Globes. It looks a little too costumey for me. It's an incredible dress for cosplay. If you're going to some kind of a historical event and you want to wear an 18th century inspired robe à la française, then she nailed it if that's what they were going for. There's also a resemblance to 1830s dresses, as you can see here from this 1830 fashion plate. right down to the color, but also the whole taffeta silk, heavy drapery look and all the frills and details. The sheer gloves that she's wearing also help to contribute to the look, as does that choker, which I had initially missed and not even noticed because I was so distracted by not only the dress, but her dramatic posing. You know, they say a name is prophetic. Parker Posey seems to be right. Next comes Rhea Seehorn, who is dressed in a Louis Vuitton golden dress, which she has described as armor. The dress features an all-over crinkled gold brocade, which instantly made me think of the Tudor era. Back in the Tudor era, if you look at all of their portraits, royalty in particular were almost always dressed in very heavy gold embroidered or gold laced fabrics. Very regal, but also stiff from the looks of it and potentially uncomfortable. But that heaviness and stiffness and extravagance, I suppose, of the fabric instantly made me think of the Tudor era. Then comes Amy Lou Wood, who dressed up in a black ball gown, also by Vivienne Westwood. And I am not surprised in the slightest, because when I initially saw it, I thought it looked very similar to the number worn by Ariana Grande. Lo and behold, the same designer made these dresses. Although, unlike Ariana, I don't get as much of an Anna Karenina vibe for whatever reason, even though she also has that off-the-shoulder, almost asymmetrical look going on. But there's just something about it that looks more princessy and, dare I say, a little more costumey than Ariana's dress. Finally, we have this dress, or this look rather, by someone I'd never really even heard of before. Apparently she's a reality TV star from Love Island, Maura Higgins, who showed up in a black dress and crushed, almost foil-like looking gold stole by Marmar Halim. Now, this dress at first glance may not necessarily scream old Hollywood. A good hint usually when it comes to actresses, if you want to find out whether they are being inspired by old Hollywood or by vintage looks in general, is to look at their hair and makeup. And you can see here, much like Selena Gomez, Maura has a very neatly curled bob going on, which the softness of the curls just almost instantly evokes old Hollywood glamour. But the dress itself, particularly the gold stole, I'm gonna call it because I don't know what else to call it, also reminds me of old Hollywood when fur stoles were just all the rage during that era. And I think it's a really interesting interpretation of a very classic look. And in my books, creativity and uniqueness and not sticking too much to your inspiration is always a risk worth taking. And that brings us to a close. I hope you found this video interesting and illuminating. I had so much fun researching this. I didn't even know if I was going to film this, to be honest, because I know it's so left field for my channel. It's not left field for me as a person, but very left field for the channel. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed researching it. And let me know in the comments what your favorite look was, whether you think there are any other vintage inspirations that I may have missed or may be unaware of. And just because I wasn't necessarily critiquing every look, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't in the comments. So again, feel free to do that. I'm always learning about style and fashion. It's not something I'm very heavily invested in, to be honest, but it's so much fun because it's so frivolous. It's also a landscape where people like taking risks, and I like taking risks. I'm taking a risk with this video, in fact, if I even end up uploading it. And that's it. I'm going to stop blabbing now, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments in the comment section. All right, take care. See you next time.